The crystalline spires of the galactic council chambers stretched toward the artificial sky, their surfaces pulsing with the soft bioluminescence of a dozen different species. The massive circular chamber could hold representatives from every known civilization in the galaxy, though today only the military alliance members were present. Ambassador Zethkri of the Valorian Empire adjusted his crystalline carapace, the faceted plates shifting color as they caught the ambient light. His six-fingered hands gripped the datapad containing humanity's application for military alliance membership, the documents having arrived just 3 solar cycles ago through standard diplomatic channels. "Preposterous," chittered Counselor Vexara from her elevated platform, her insectoid mandibles clicking in rapid succession, what passed for derisive laughter among the hive queens. Her compound eyes, each the size of a human fist, reflected the holographic display with prismatic intensity. These humans, they possess no natural armor plating. Their bite force measures a pathetic 162 pounds per square inch, and their optical sensors can't even perceive beyond the narrow visible spectrum. The three-dimensional holographic projection rotated slowly in the chamber center, displaying human anatomy in excruciating detail. Various council members leaned forward from their species-specific seating arrangements, examining the biological data with scientific curiosity mixed with barely concealed disdain. "Observe this anatomical inadequacy," rumbled General Tornash, his 4 massive arms, each capable of crushing steel, gesturing dismissively at the projection. The Krillilian's scarred exoskeleton bore testament to countless battles across the galaxy. No retractable claws, no venom delivery systems, no electromagnetic pulse organs, no acid production glands. By the void, they don't even have proper carapaces. How do these soft-bodied creatures survive on their death world? Ambassador Zethkri had to admit, reviewing the biological assessments, that humans seemed profoundly underwhelming. Their planet, designated Earth in their primitive language, carried the ominous classification of Class 9 Death World, a planetary environment so hostile that 97% of known galactic species would perish within hours of exposure. Yet somehow, these fragile-looking bipeds had not only survived but thrived in such conditions. "Perhaps," suggested Counselor Maythar, her serpentine form coiling thoughtfully around her crystalline perch, "we should observe these humans in actual combat scenarios before rendering our final judgment. After all, they somehow achieved interstellar travel and faster-than-light communication." The debate continued for 2 standard hours, with arguments ranging from scientific skepticism to outright mockery. Finally, the vote was called. The decision was closer than expected, but curiosity ultimately trumped prejudice. 3 human military advisors would be embedded with the prestigious 47th Galactic Assault Brigade for their upcoming pacification campaign against Devourer remnants, a task considered routine mop-up work, perfect for evaluating these peculiar new applicants without risking valuable galactic lives. The transport ship's docking bay hissed as atmospheric processors equalized pressure, releasing clouds of vapor that swirled around 3 figures emerging from the human vessel. Captain Sarah Chen stepped onto the polished metal deck with practiced military bearing, followed closely by Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez and Sergeant Elena Kozlov, the first humans ever to serve in an integrated alien military unit. The assembled troops of the 47th Galactic Assault Brigade formed loose ranks in the massive hangar, their various forms creating a living museum of galactic evolution. Towering Krillians with their chitinous exoskeletons stood beside crystalline Valorians whose faceted bodies refracted the artificial lighting into rainbow patterns. Gas-breathing Nebulans floated in environmental suits, while sleek Saurians coiled their muscular forms around support pillars. All of them stared at the newcomers with barely concealed amusement. "They're so diminutive," wheezed Corporal Thexran, his mechanical voice filtering through the atmospheric processors of his environmental suit. The Nebulan's containment system made him resemble a walking storm cloud, complete with swirling gaseous patterns visible through the transparent aluminum panels. How do they even carry their equipment with those stick-thin appendages? Sarah ignored the comments, having anticipated exactly this reception during the 3-week journey from Earth. At 5 feet 6 inches, she was considered above average height for a human female, but barely reached the chest plates of her smallest alien squad mates. Marcus and Elena flanked her in perfect formation, their matte black Earth-manufactured gear looking almost primitive compared to the exotic energy weapons and bio-integrated armor systems surrounding them. Commander Grickthal approached with measured steps, each footfall creating small stress fractures in the deck plating. The veteran Krillian warrior's scarred exoskeleton bore the trophy marks of 100 different battles across 17 star systems. Acid burns from Devourer combat, plasma scarring from the Hegemony Wars, and the distinctive spiral patterns left by Void Predator claws. "Humans," he said, his voice a complex harmony of clicking mandibles and resonant chest chambers. "I have extensively reviewed your military records. Your species demonstrates impressive tactical victories against your own kind, but—" He gestured with one massive arm toward the assembled alien soldiers. "This represents warfare on an entirely different scale of lethality." "We understand completely, sir," Sarah replied with calm professionalism, her voice steady despite being surrounded by beings who could literally tear her apart with their bare appendages. "We're here to observe, learn, and contribute whatever capabilities we possess." The Krillian's compound eyes, each composed of thousands of individual lenses, glittered with what might have been approval. "Indeed. At dawn cycle tomorrow, we deploy to Kepler 442c. The Devourer remnants there should provide adequate educational opportunities for your integration assessment." As the briefing concluded and alien soldiers dispersed to their various quarters, Sarah's enhanced hearing caught fragments of conversation in dozens of languages. Her translation implant worked overtime, converting the polyglot chatter into variations of "the soft skins won't survive first contact" and "why are we assigned to babysit these primitives?" Elena Kozlov methodically checked her sidearm, a chemically propelled projectile weapon that had drawn actual laughter from several aliens during equipment inspection. "Think they'll modify their assessment, Captain?" Marcus Rodriguez grinned, adjusting the straps of his combat pack with movements that spoke of years of military discipline. "Oh, they will. They absolutely will." The assault transport Voidstalker shuddered violently as it pierced through Kepler 442c's turbulent atmosphere, its reinforced hull groaning under the stress of atmospheric entry. The ship's gravitic dampeners worked overtime to maintain stability, but the bone-jarring turbulence still rattled every occupant within the cramped troop compartment. Inside the dimly lit cargo bay, 47 alien soldiers of various species performed final equipment checks with practiced efficiency. The air hummed with the distinctive whine of charging energy weapons, plasma rifles calibrated for maximum tissue disruption, sonic disruptors capable of liquefying internal organs, and molecular disassemblers that could reduce matter to its component atoms. Bioluminescent ammunition pouches glowed softly in the red-tinted combat lighting. In stark contrast, the 3 humans sat quietly in their assigned section, methodically performing final inspections on their comparatively primitive equipment. Their chemical-propelled firearms seemed almost archaic among the exotic arsenals surrounding them, like Bronze Age spears in a modern armory. "Experiencing pre-combat anxiety?" taunted Private Zalek, a reptilian saurian whose natural scale armor could deflect concentrated plasma bursts. His forked tongue flicked out to taste the air, detecting the subtle pheromone changes that indicated fear in most species. "Perhaps you should remain aboard the transport, where the thick hull plating can protect your fragile forms." Sarah Chen didn't look up from methodically cleaning her rifle's firing mechanism, her movements precise and economical. "We'll manage our responsibilities, Private." The mission briefing had been straightforward, almost insultingly simple. Their target was a devourer hive complex carved deep into the mountain's natural cave systems. Intelligence reports suggested minimal resistance, perhaps 20 to 30 of the chitinous insectoid creatures remaining after the main invasion fleet had been systematically destroyed 6 standard months ago. A routine pacification operation, barely worthy of the 47th Brigade's attention. "Remember your protocols," Commander Grickthal announced over the ship's communication system, his harmonious voice cutting through the engine noise. "Devourers are cunning but tactically predictable. They will attempt to funnel our forces into prepared killing zones, utilize their corrosive acid projectiles, and overwhelm isolated units through numerical superiority. Maintain standard formation discipline, monitor your corner clearance, and trust in your armor's protective capabilities." The transport touched down with a metallic thud in a clearing approximately 2 kilometers from the primary target zone. As the massive rear doors opened with pneumatic hisses, releasing the pressurized atmosphere, Sarah noticed something that hadn't appeared in any of the intelligence briefings. Fresh excavation marks scattered around the mountain's base. Lots of them. The scarred earth showed clear signs of recent tunneling activity, far more extensive than any geological survey had indicated. "Sir," she called to Commander Grickthal, pointing toward the suspicious terrain features. "Those tunnel entrances weren't included in our tactical assessment." The commander glanced dismissively at the scarred mountainside, his compound eyes barely registering the obvious signs of recent construction. "Geological instability. This planetary body experiences significant tectonic activity." But Sarah had studied enough human military history to recognize defensive earthworks when she encountered them. She exchanged meaningful glances with Marcus and Elena, noting the grim understanding in their expressions. This wasn't going to be the simple cleanup operation they'd been promised. The attack erupted from everywhere at once, transforming the peaceful mountain valley into a hellscape of violence and chaos. What intelligence had confidently reported as 20 to 30 devourer stragglers turned out to be nearly 300 of the chitinous nightmare creatures, emerging from an intricate network of concealed tunnels that honeycombed the entire mountainside like a massive termite colony. The insectoid warriors poured from hidden entrances with coordinated precision, their razor-sharp mandibles clicking in harmonious battle songs that echoed off the rocky walls. The 47th Galactic Assault Brigade's textbook formation dissolved into complete pandemonium within the first 30 seconds of contact. Streams of corrosive acid, glowing green with bioluminescent toxins, arced through the air like deadly rainbows. Razor-sharp chitinous projectiles, fired from specialized organs in the Devourer's thoraxes, whistled past alien soldiers' heads with lethal accuracy. Several members of the brigade went down immediately, their advanced energy-resistant armor proving useless against the unexpected volume and intensity of the biological weapons fire. Corporal Thexran's environmental suit began dissolving as acid ate through the transparent aluminum plating, forcing him to emergency purge his atmospheric containment system. "Fall back to the landing zone!" Commander Grickthal shouted over the cacophony of battle, his own carapace smoking from a near miss that had left deep scoring marks across his chest plates. "This is a coordinated trap. Repeat, we are in a prepared kill zone." But the Devourers had anticipated exactly this tactical response. More tunnels opened directly behind the retreating squad, disgorging fresh waves of warriors that cut off their primary escape route. The aliens found themselves caught in a classic pincer movement, exactly the kind of tactical nightmare their standard operating procedures were specifically designed to prevent. That's when the 3 humans did something that defied every expectation their alien squadmates had formed about their species. Instead of retreating in panic with the others, they spread out laterally and began moving forward into the teeth of the ambush, utilizing terrain features that the larger alien soldiers had completely ignored. Small boulder formations, slight depressions in the ground, scraggly vegetation clusters that provided minimal but crucial concealment. Sarah Chen rolled behind a weathered outcropping as a stream of devourer acid sizzled past her head, leaving smoking gouges in the rock surface. Without hesitation, she popped up from cover and put 3 perfectly placed rounds center mass into her attacker. The simple lead bullets punched through chitinous armor that routinely deflected sophisticated energy weapons, dropping the creature instantly. Rodriguez, Kozlov, established suppressive fire on that ridgeline, she shouted over the din of battle, her voice carrying clearly despite the chaos. Grichthal, we need to secure that high ground position or we're all dead. Marcus and Elena immediately opened sustained automatic fire, their primitive but reliable weapons chewing through devourer ranks with devastating effectiveness. The alien soldiers stared in complete amazement as the humans, who just moments before had seemed so impossibly fragile, systematically began dismantling the carefully prepared ambush through perfectly coordinated small unit tactics. "How are they moving with such velocity?" gasped Corporal Fexran, his damaged environmental suit sparking with electrical discharge. Sarah had already reached the strategic ridge position, using compact explosives to collapse a major tunnel entrance. "Because we're not carrying 200 pounds of ceremonial armor," she called back. "Now, move your assets and follow our lead." What followed was a masterclass in human warfare that left the alien soldiers utterly stunned and fundamentally challenged their understanding of military doctrine. Where the galactic forces had traditionally relied on individual biological superiority, thicker armor plating, enhanced muscular systems, advanced energy weapons, genetically engineered combat enhancements, the humans approached warfare as an interconnected system of coordinated elements. They moved as a single organism, each member instinctively covering the other's tactical weaknesses while amplifying their collective strengths, transforming apparent disadvantages into devastating advantages through pure strategic thinking. Elena Kozlov demonstrated this principle by belly-crawling through maintenance spaces far too narrow for the larger alien physiques, her compact human frame allowing her to access critical infrastructure points. She placed precisely calculated explosive charges at key tunnel junctions, targeting structural weak points that would create cascading failures throughout the Devourer network. Her engineering background from Earth's military academies proved invaluable in understanding load-bearing calculations that the aliens had never considered. Marcus Rodriguez utilized his smaller profile and enhanced situational awareness to serve as a forward observer for the heavy weapons teams, directing their devastating firepower with uncanny precision. His ability to remain concealed in terrain features that couldn't hide larger alien forms made him effectively invisible to devourer sensors, allowing him to coordinate devastating flanking maneuvers. Meanwhile, Sarah Chen seemed to be simultaneously everywhere and nowhere, coordinating the evolving counterattack with a strategic mind that impressed even the veteran Commander Grichthal. She processed battlefield information with frightening speed, adapting tactics in real time as conditions changed, demonstrating the kind of flexible thinking that had allowed humans to dominate their Deathworld home planet. "They're exploiting terrain advantages against us," Sarah explained, while helping apply emergency medical gel to a wounded Saurian's acid burns. "Devourers excavate extensively, correct. That represents their primary evolutionary advantage, but they're thinking like miners, not military engineers. Those tunnel systems follow predictable geological features, natural stress fractures, mineral deposit veins, underground water sources. If we collapse the right structural supports," she gestured toward a detailed schematic that Elena had rapidly sketched during her reconnaissance mission, showing tunnel intersections and support beam locations. "We can trigger a complete systematic failure of their entire defensive infrastructure." "Impossible," protested Lieutenant Keksara, her crystalline form refracting light into prismatic patterns as her natural armor automatically adjusted to combat conditions. "The mountain consists of solid metamorphic rock formations. Achieving that level of structural collapse would require massive industrial-grade explosive charges." Marcus Rodriguez grinned broadly, hefting a backpack that suddenly looked suspiciously heavy and oddly shaped. "Fortunately, we brought some traditional party favors from Earth's military surplus inventory." The plan was absolutely insane by conventional galactic military standards. Instead of engaging the Devourers in traditional tunnel-to-tunnel combat operations, the humans proposed to literally reshape the entire battlefield by triggering a controlled geological avalanche. The strategy required precise mathematical timing, perfect multi-unit coordination, and the kind of calculated risk-taking that made veteran alien soldiers' nervous systems spark with anticipatory anxiety. But as Commander Grichthal observed Sarah Chen calmly coordinating the complex operation, moving tactical pieces like a chess grandmaster contemplating an endgame scenario, he began to understand something fundamental about humanity's approach to survival. They hadn't survived their death world by being the strongest, fastest, or most heavily armed species. They had survived by being the most intelligently adaptive. The explosions came in sequence, each one meticulously timed to create a cascading structural failure throughout the mountain's geological framework. The humans had spent hours performing complex mathematical calculations, analyzing stress points, identifying geological weak spots, and mapping load-bearing formations while their alien squad mates provided sustained covering fire against increasingly desperate Devourer counterattacks. Sarah's voice cut through the chaos with crystal clarity. "Fire in the hole! All units, establish minimum safe distance immediately. 30 seconds to detonation!" The mountain groaned like a living creature in its death throes. Then it screamed. Millions of tons of metamorphic rock came thundering down in an apocalyptic roar that could be heard across 3 neighboring continents. The carefully orchestrated chain reaction turned solid stone into flowing rivers of debris, crushing everything in its path with the inexorable force of geological inevitability. Devourer tunnel systems collapsed like dominoes in a precisely calculated sequence, crushing their chitinous occupants or sealing them away from the surface world forever beneath tons of compressed rubble. What had been an impregnable mountain fortress, carved over decades of careful excavation and strategic fortification, became a massive pile of broken stone and pulverized earth in under 30 seconds of controlled demolition. In the sudden, deafening silence that followed the catastrophic restructuring, 44 surviving members of the 47th Galactic Assault Brigade stared in absolute shock at 3 humans who had just reshaped an entire geographical feature using primitive chemical explosives and basic engineering principles learned in their species' adolescent educational institutions. "Impossible," whispered Private Zulek, his reptilian scales pale with shock and his forked tongue flicking nervously through the dust-filled atmosphere. "No galactic species wages warfare like this. You don't alter planetary topography to achieve tactical victories." Elena Kozlov was already surveying the transformed rebel field with professional geological interest, her trained eyes identifying potential secondary collapse zones and structural instabilities. "Actually, we perform large-scale terraforming operations constantly. Humans have been literally moving mountains for 10,000 years of recorded history. Sometimes we do it for mining operations, sometimes for agricultural development, and sometimes—" She gestured toward the completely transformed landscape surrounding them. "Sometimes we do it to eliminate strategic threats." Commander Grichthal approached Sarah with deliberate steps, his compound eyes reflecting something entirely new, not merely professional respect, but a kind of odd understanding mixed with primitive fear. "Captain Chen, in my 37 standard years of active military service, spanning 17 different planetary campaigns across 12 star systems, I have never witnessed anything approaching this level of tactical innovation." Sarah shrugged with characteristic human nonchalance, methodically checking her rifle's action for dust contamination. Different environmental challenges require different technological solutions. Where we evolved, you adapt quickly to changing conditions or your genetic line terminates permanently. And humans, she looked around at the alien faces surrounding her, noting their expressions of stunned comprehension. Humans have become exceptionally proficient at rapid adaptation.
But your species lacks the natural biological advantages of established galactic warriors, protested Corporal Thexron, his damaged environmental suit still sparking intermittently from acid damage. No protective carapaces, no enhanced muscular density, no integrated energy weapon systems. Marcus Rodriguez laughed heartily, affectionately slapping the alien on his reinforced shoulder plating. That's precisely why we represent such an asymmetric threat, friend. When you can't rely on being the physically largest or naturally strongest predator in the ecosystem, you develop the intellectual capability to be the most creatively dangerous. And creativity, he gestured expansively at the completely transformed tactical landscape around them. Creativity is the most potentially devastating weapon in the known galaxy. As they prepared to return to base camp for tactical debriefing, the alien soldiers observed their human squadmates with fundamentally altered perspectives. These weren't the weak, fragile creatures they'd initially dismissed. These were apex predators from a death world who had learned to hunt using their superior intellects.
The debriefing at Galactic Command lasted 6 hours and required 3 separate translation matrices to accommodate the unprecedented nature of the report. Commander Grichthal's after-action assessment was unlike anything in military archives. The human military advisors didn't merely contribute to mission success. They fundamentally redefined what mission success could look like in asymmetric warfare scenarios. Where our established doctrine saw an impossible tactical situation requiring massive casualties, they perceived an engineering problem with elegant solutions. Where we planned to engage the enemy's natural strengths through attrition warfare, they systematically eliminated those strengths entirely through environmental manipulation. The holographic recordings played repeatedly in the council chambers. 3 small, seemingly fragile humans orchestrating the complete destruction of an entire mountain fortress complex using weapons that most galactic civilizations had abandoned during their pre-spaceflight technological development periods. Military analysts from 17 different species studied every frame, trying to understand the tactical thinking that made such operations possible. General Tornosh's 4 massive arms crossed thoughtfully as he reviewed the technical specifications. They utilized chemical explosives, primitive chemical explosives, technology resembling something from our species' ancestral periods. But the tactical application methodology, the geological engineering calculations, the coordinated timing sequences were absolutely brilliant, finished Ambassador Zethgri, his crystalline features reflecting the holographic displays with prismatic intensity. They conceived battlefield operations in 3-dimensional geological terms, while our forces thought in traditional 2-dimensional surface engagement patterns. They perceived the mountain not as an environmental obstacle requiring circumvention, but as a massive kinetic weapon requiring proper activation. Counselor Vexara's mandibles clicked rapidly in complex rhythmic patterns, not in derision this time, but in what her species considered the highest form of military appreciation. We have been evaluating human military capabilities using our own biological and technological standards. This represents a fundamental error in strategic assessment. The final vote was unanimous across all member species. 3 standard months later, Captain Sarah Chen stood before the full Galactic Council, wearing the newly created dress uniform of the Terran Military Advisory Corps as the first human to receive the Star of Valor, the highest military decoration in known galactic space. Behind her, Marcus Rodriguez and Elena Kozlov wore the specially commissioned rank insignia of Tactical Innovation Specialists, a position created specifically for human military advisors after extensive consultation with xenopsychology experts. Captain Chen, announced Ambassador Zethgri, his voice carrying across the vast council chambers, humanity's application for military alliance membership is not merely approved, it is expedited with full honors. Your species contributes something to galactic warfare doctrine that we didn't even realize we were missing. What's that, sir? Sarah asked with characteristic directness. Zethkri's crystalline features shifted in what xenobiologists had confirmed was the Valerian equivalent of a smile. The intellectual capability to transform weakness into strength, limitation into advantage, and tactical impossibility into strategic inevitability. In our cultural lexicon, we call this evolutionary tactical thinking. In yours, I believe you simply call it being human. As the formal ceremony concluded and news of humanity's acceptance spread across quantum communication networks to thousands of worlds, military academies throughout galactic space began emergency curriculum updates. New courses appeared overnight: adaptive tactical thinking, environmental warfare engineering, human strategic methodology, and death world survival psychology. The galaxy had learned an important lesson about making assumptions. Never underestimate a species that survived by making the impossible look routine. After all, any civilization that could transform a death world into a garden planet, split atoms for energy production, and fling themselves between star systems using controlled thermonuclear explosions was probably worth having as an ally, especially when the alternative was having them as your enemy.